she's just amazing.
Welcome to the Great Reboot. I'm Tori Ryden. Hunger. While many Americans are stocking up on food supplies to last them 2 to 4 weeks, there are many who do not have access to food. COVID-19 has ratcheted hunger to unseen levels in modern times. Food pantries, soup kitchens, emergency food systems are designed to provide for neighbors in need. Many of those, however, rely on volunteers and often large gatherings at community meals. COVID-19 has forced many of those services to shut down altogether out of necessity and out of safety. So the big question is, who's helping the hungry? And as each week passes, the number of hungry increases to alarming levels. Ellie Lowe, a mom with a background in collaborative partnerships, has come up with an idea that could really stretch the adage, think globally, act locally, to all parts of this globe. But starting first in her own town, Portland, Maine. And it's a great place to begin. It's also where we begin with Ellie, who has a big idea, and it's called Cooking for Community. Ellie, thank you so much for joining us here on The Great Reboot.
Thanks for having me, Tori.
How'd you come up with this idea, Ellie? I know you're a mom and you've had a lot of experience helping in many different areas of the country. When did this idea kind of start to surface?
Well, I think the situation is changing on a daily basis, but what we're hearing is that there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of people who are wondering where their next meal is going to come from. And that those are numbers of people that are filing for unemployment, people that may have already been in a category that was being served by social service agencies, homeless people, immigrant people, the underserved, elderly, certainly a lot of elderly who can't get out now to get food for their meals. And there's a enormous need for especially for cooked meals and nourishing, healthy food that is not being met in our community.
So you're at home and you're trying to figure out, what can I do to help? I imagine, take us through kind of the process of kind of what ignited this idea in your mind, and how long ago did this all start?
Amazingly, it started about a week and a half ago. It started because I read a Facebook post from a local chef caterer named Figgy De Benedetto, who runs Figgy's Takeout. She was wondering what she could do to help and offered to cook chicken and rice casseroles for free for anybody who wanted to come and pick one up to eat. I, at the same time, have a community of immigrants, people that I help to support when I can. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Why don't I pay Figgy so that she can stay in business to cook casseroles to feed my friends who are desperately seeking their next meal at this point. And then I realized that maybe this was a model that could work. And maybe we could get a group of people together to fund restaurants, to employ people, to get back in business, to cook food, to then distribute to people who need the food. And the first person I reached out to was a woman named Leslie Oster. She is a co-brainchild in this effort. Leslie is currently the director of the Blaine House for Governor Mills. Her background is in the food industry as a caterer, as a manager, as a chef in Portland. She's very well connected and she's a bundle of energy. And Leslie loved this idea.
Well, what's not to like about it? I mean, it sounds like it's a win-win as long as you get buy-in from everybody. And I imagine, so you're relying on donors to help out, because that's kind of where the whole food chain begins. Is that right?
That's right. Yes. The driving force above all of this is donations. So we sort of put together our initial idea. Leslie immediately reached out to Catholic Charities of Maine, who agreed to become our sort of fiscal sponsor. So we are now an independent fund or program that falls under their umbrella financial system. So any donation that's made to Cooking for Community is sent to Catholic Charities of Maine as a tax-deductible donation. And yet we are independent, so we will manage and use the money for our own purposes, separate from Catholic Charities of Maine.
So Ellie, take us through kind of that, I'm just going to call it like a feeder system. So you have that money, that's where it begins. You get the donations, and then where does the money kind of filter down through? Just maybe help set the stage with of where it goes from
Yeah,
there.
it's quite amazing, actually. So we have the money, and we use the money to fund restaurants who then can employ people who they have had to lay off, hopefully temporarily, open their doors, start their operations again, repurpose their efforts to produce healthy, easy to reheat, single packaged meals using primarily local ingredients or donated perishable food. So what that does is it gets our local purveyors a pipeline to get their food back to the consumer and to develop their revenue stream back up again. So that's our farmers.
Farmers, right? Growers, people in the community.
Mm-hmm. Farmers, fishers.
Wow.
So it benefits all of our local farmers and fishers. And then the meals are produced, and we connect the restaurants with social service agencies. We are in partnership already with Preble Street, with Amistad, and with Wayside, who, especially Preble Street and Wayside, their former model of feeding lots of people was to have community meals on a regular basis, bringing lots of people in together to one space and serving hot food. And of course, they had to shut down all of those operations. And now the only thing they can do is produce to-go meals that are filled with cold food, pre-packaged, non-perishable goods and items. And they're doing an amazing job trying to meet that growing need, but at the same time acknowledge that they have no capacity to produce cooked meals. And a huge demographic, a growing demographic of people. I believe Wayside has seen their demand increase by 50 to 75% in the last 2 weeks alone.
That's amazing. Wow.
I know that the Good Shepherd Food Bank, which sources a lot of food to these social service agencies, we're in conversations with them about partnering because they have had to spend much of their budget and a lot of the new donations they're getting on non-perishable items to put in to-go meals, while at the same time they have tons of perishable items that are going to waste.
Boy.
Right.
But not anymore. It sounds like this is just a great solution as far as putting that food to work. And I want to bring in, I know that this is all a collaboration, which sounds just absolutely fantastic. A couple of restaurants are involved with this so far, and I know the Hope, maybe we'll talk about the Hope in a little bit, but the first two restaurants that are involved are one of them is Chaval, that's in Portland, and then the second one is the restaurant called the Little Giant, and it's in the west end of Portland. And we're very fortunate to have Jan Malin, who is the owner of Little Giant, with us. And I just also want to welcome you to the program, The Great Reboot. It's really good to have you, Jan, here. Thank you so much.
Hi, thanks. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So Jan, when you were approached with this whole idea, tell me what went through your mind, because it could not have been easy for you, as it is not easy for any restaurant owner to have to say to a staff, I'm really sorry, but we have to shut down. And so many have faced that situation. Tell me a little bit about what this means to you, this whole project.
Yeah, so up until last week, we were holding on with our curbside takeout and delivery business, which is where we had sort of pivoted to once it became clear that that the right thing to do was to stop allowing people to socialize in restaurants, and then it became mandatory, obviously through statewide instructions. And the delivery business was going well because people were still looking to have food prepared and not have to cook it themselves, or in certain cases they couldn't go get it or they didn't feel comfortable going to get it. But on Friday, last Friday, it became clear that even in that activity, there was enough challenges with social distancing and things like that that it made sense to stop that, for the better for the better purpose of trying to stop the spread of the virus. So we are now faced with 15 employees, and I think our I think that between Chaval and Piccolo, our collaborative partners there, there's another 30 employees that are currently on unemployment. We've applied for the stimulus package relief in the form of a number of SBA type funded programs, which there are challenges around in itself. The idea is that you can borrow money from the SBA, and if you use it for payroll, then that loan then gets forgiven. But there's limitations in terms of what you can use it for and when you have to use it for. And if you think about the sort of thinking behind this initiative, we have to hire everybody back in order to have that loan be forgiven, right? And we have to hire them back and be back to full staff within 8 weeks. Well, I don't know if restaurants are really going to be open in 8 weeks, right? And so we're going to be basically hiring people back to do what right now, right? We're not doing restaurants, we're not doing takeout, right? So is that a real good use of the stimulus right now, just to hire people back, just to have them, maybe do some maintenance tasks that, around the building that requires everyone to be 6 feet away from everybody? So for me, obviously there's the whole benefit to the community that we can offer in terms of bringing food to people who need food, but we're taking it a step further with Ellie and the rest of the team, which is say, look, let's just say, for example, that a meal costs $10 to prepare, just an example, right? And say half of that, $5 is labor and $5 is food, right? If we can bring people back into our restaurants to work, and of course, under very strict policies, wearing face masks, wearing gloves, no more than 2 people in a kitchen, things like that, to make sure that the spread doesn't happen within our kitchens and the food preparation is safe. But if we can bring people in, some people, right, and put them to work, right, doing something like this for the community, right, but paid for by the stimulus package, right, that $5 allocation to labor is effectively zero, right, because it's being funded by the stimulus package, which means that if you had, say, $50,000 raised at $10, that's 5,000 meals. But now we've cut the cost in half, right? That's 10,000 meals we can do, right? And likewise,
It's pretty amazing.
And let's say that we can use some of this perishable food, right? That's out there that's not being used the way it should be, right? And we can bring our food cost down to, say, from $5 to, say, $2, right? Right, because so now that the meal cost is $2, that same $50,000 now goes from 5,000 meals at $10 a meal to 25,000 meals at $2 a meal, right? And so the thinking is, we don't want to just be people benefiting from the stimulus package and have people continue to have nothing to do. We want to redeploy either the donations, whether it's cash or food, and the stimulus package in the form of labor overhead back into the communities and make those charitable donations that people are signing up to, who are likely feeling already stretched wallets. We want to stretch that further, right, and make sure that we can get more meals out there. And so that's really what resonated, is I want to be seen to be using the stimulus money in a way that benefits not just the employees, which of course they'll benefit from, and I'm thrilled that they will, but also the community, and putting that money to work in the way that Ellie and Cooking for Community is intending to.
Yeah, Ellie, that's really kind of your vision, right? Is just to, across the board, it's supporting on so many different levels.
That's right. I think it's just tapping a network and sort of igniting pipelines that already exist, and keeping the essential food industry in Portland, the restaurant industry, which is one of the tenets of our tourism industry, of our economy. I recently heard that 10% of our workforce is employed somehow in the restaurant industry. If we can keep that breathing, if we can keep it churning out food to people who need it, and keep people fed at the same time, then we're going to be in a much better position when this crisis is over and we want to all get back to normal and have a thriving economic and tourism industry in Portland.
I think the irony of the 10% that you just mentioned is that probably some of those very people who need the food the most might be the restaurant workers who are out of work, who have, you're hearing people who don't have $400 that they can lean on. I mean, people are really in dire straits right now.
That's right.
So at this point, congratulations for getting this up and running a week and a half. That's amazing. It proves what people can do when they're collaborating and they're working together on the same kind of vision and mission. So what happens now? When will these meals start getting out, and who's going to deliver them, et cetera? And how many are you hoping to make that first day?
So we have tentative plans to launch our pilot program next week. We're starting small so that we can get the model right, so that we can be as efficient as possible. We don't want to duplicate any of the amazing efforts that are happening in our community. We want to make sure there's ample communication and that the right people are involved. Jan and his partner over at Chaval, Ilma Lopez, are working closely together on pulling that pilot program and putting it onto paper and starting up with a plan for Chaval and Little Giant to start producing meals next week, specifically in the beginning to go to Preble Street, to go to Amistad, and to go to Wayside. And we're targeting 3 populations there. We're targeting the elderly through Wayside, the homeless through Preble Street, and the underserved through Amistad. And we want to build on those populations ultimately and kick out more meals and bring in new partners, more restaurants, more social service agencies, and the immigrant population. But again, I think starting small and making sure this model works, tweaking what doesn't work, and moving forward with a full transparency and a really efficient effort is the best bet here.
Well, I have to applaud the efforts that are going toward, you're trying to find the people who have been completely underserved in this. I've been so happy to see that kids are being provided with programs, particularly kids who rely on school breakfast and lunch programs. But it's really great to see, even more of the community being served this way. Is the hope and the vision, and I'm wondering, Jan, if you think that there will be buy-in from other restaurant owners around the state of Maine, and then kind of as you trickle out to other parts around the country, do you think this is something that will catch on?
So we're trying to figure that out, right? So we don't want to just bring on restaurants and have all this capacity, right? If the meals that are required can be done in one location, right? But at the same time, we have to recognize that we aren't able to operate at full capacity with a 6-person line or something like that, right? It's just too many people for this situation in one room, right? It's not safe. And so we're having conversations with people as to who wants to do this, who wants to be involved in this, because we're not going to make anybody, come to work if they don't feel safe doing so. And we want to make sure that people aren't going to be somehow, judged by that. So it's really, about people have full optionality to decide on doing this. And the idea is that between Chaval and Little Giant, we alternate days and we help each other out and we pick up the slack. And as more and more places come online and we can start to help other communities and other areas, right, that'll give us a sense of the demand, and then we can bring other restaurants in on it. Because again, we're limited with maybe 2 people in the kitchen as to how many meals we can physically produce. We see it, and I see it certainly as my mission as an owner of a restaurant with an asset, which is a commercial kitchen, right, that can produce food safely, that this is something that we should be contributing towards this cause. And that's something I feel really strongly about. But the more people that we can get, the more people we can serve, right, the more communities, the more meals that are required, the cheaper it becomes per meal on a unit cost basis, right? Because to produce 1,000 meals versus say 1,500 meals, right, in a day, the incremental cost of those extra 500, because of we're doing things in large batches. We can do it because we have the volume to be able to do that, right? It becomes cheaper to do more for the same amount of labor, for example. Yeah. And so we are actively encouraging restaurants to sign up and partner with us and join the queue. it's really, I'm not sure if it's really a queue, but join the list. And as the demand picks up and as people figure out how they can contribute, we'll work it in. But one of the things that we're still trying to figure out is menu planning, right? We can produce a menu based upon the purveyors and the sources of food that we have through our existing channels, and we can buy bulk and we can pass those savings to the ultimate food cost and meal cost that this program is going to be delivering. But then we get a donation of a whole bunch of stuff, right, from somewhere that we have no idea what it is. And so it's actually a bit of a challenge for our chefs, which they're excited about, right, in terms of, okay, we were going to make this, but now we have this, and now we have to rethink today's menu. And so a little bit of a sort of reality TV show, I think, going on there too. I'm excited about.
Which is exciting. I think that would be so exciting for chefs to really kind of show what they can do.
I think what's interesting is that I want to really focus on showing people what the cost is of these meals, and showing how you don't have to just give money, right? You asked about delivery. We don't yet have a delivery partner identified. We're working with it, right? But if we don't have to pay someone to deliver because somebody has vans they can use, right? Because they're not being used for whatever they were being used for before, right? And that delivery can be handled by somebody. That will then reduce the unit cost per meal, right? Because we don't have to pay for that delivery portion. So there's all sorts of ways people can get involved in this, contributing in kind, right?
Well, I think it sounds just profoundly. It's kind of a breakthrough of sorts. Ellie, I'd love for you. I know you. This has been all consuming for you the past week and a half. You have a website up, so let's go ahead and give out the address for that, and people can learn about how they can donate if they'd like to, or if they know somebody who is in need of some food and deliveries, they can also find out that way too.
That's right. Our biggest limiting factor right now, Tori, probably is funding. We have raised over $55,000 in the last week and a half. That is primarily, almost exclusively, through individual donors in the local community that are looking for ways to help. We feel that a crowdsourcing funding model is what's really going to propel this movement and make huge waves throughout our whole community. So we're looking for any assistance in that department, large or small. And there is a link to that on our website. Yes.
So can you give out the website information, and if there's a phone number where people can call as well?
Yes, the website is cookingforcommunity.org. And there's a lot of information listed on the website itself. There's an email, it's info@cookingforcommunity.org. We don't yet have a direct phone number. I've been using my personal cell phone number in the meantime. But the best way to reach us is through the contact form on the website. And one of us will get back to you as quickly as we can.
Cooking for Community, it is a really great program. I love that you have done this. You're very nimble, and my hat is off to you for all that you all have done. Malin, thank you so much for joining us from Little Giant, and I just wish you all the best with this project. And I'm really anxious to hear how it goes.
Thank you, Tori. Thanks for taking the time to make your viewers aware of what we're doing, and thanks to all of our customers, past, present, and future. We look forward to being able to support the community and welcoming everyone back into our doors when we're through the other side of this.
And Ellie, Lynn, and Lo, what started as an idea in your home, look at you now. And I just say, keep on going. This is great. And I do hope that this wonderful project moves outside of Portland and feeds all of Maine and perhaps all of the country. It's a really, really great project. So hats off to you.
Thank you, Tori. This has been a fun conversation, and none of this would have been possible without the amazing energy of a collection of volunteers and a growing number of donors. We have at least 8 people working full or part-time behind the scenes with us, and we're generating an enormous sort of collective spirit that is so fun to be a part of at this point. And I share your hope that this vision expands. I think we do have a replicable model that maybe some other cities or other regions of the country can pick up on. We're happy to share our ideas or concepts with anyone else out there who might be watching that wants to pick up on this.
Cookingforcommunity.org. The website is up, so you can check it out. Again, all the best to both of you.
Thank you.